Thanks for taking the time to come to the Welcome to Adolescence class. And so you're here because you've got a sixth grader or a fifth grader actually that's going into sixth grade. Maybe it's your first sixth grade or your first experience in middle school or junior high. Maybe this is something you've done a couple times before, but we're glad that you came to this class, that your kid's checking out the sneak peek. We just want to take some time, and unfortunately I'm unable to be there because I'm preaching. So we wanted to take some time and just kind of walk through where we understand your kids are at this age, at this phase we would call it. And we also want to take some time and show you how we believe you can partner with us and kind of understanding our philosophy as we do youth ministry. So the first thing we want to do is talk about phase. And if you see on the screen there, you'll see phase is a time frame in a kid's life when you can leverage distinctive opportunities to influence their future. So let's talk a little bit about this phase. Before we do that, let's check this out. So the sixth grade phase, we call this the phase when there's never enough groceries, too many hormones, and a dramatic kid that needs someone to prove who cares. We would say that no phase has less consistency than sixth grade. Here's why. There's so many transitions going on that some sixth graders still sleep with stuffed animals, and some want to sleep with their new cell phones. Most sixth graders are alternately one and then the other on any given day or hour. They may appear sloppy, unkept one moment, and preppy and overdressed the next. That's what makes every day a new day to discover who is this person growing to really be. In these 52 weeks, a kid may grow 3 inches, gain 10 pounds. But the place you'll most likely notice the growth is your grocery bill. Keep the pantry stocked, and if you're leading sixth graders, bring French fries. Ultimate mic drop win. During the school year, there will be both tears, both you and theirs. Doors will slam, drama will happen, hormones will soar, friends will break up, abnormal has become the norm. But amid all the ups and downs in these changing tides of emotions, now is the time to lean in even more closely when they push. Prove you can't be pushed away. When they change, prove you will love them consistently no matter the change. When they break your trust, prove that you are someone that can be trusted. It may seem challenging, but keep up the chase. So in this phase, there's never any reason to wonder who cares. And as we always say, each year you only have so many weeks left with your kids, and this would mark 364 weeks and counting. We think that it's so important as a parent or a youth leader, if you want to help a kid know they matter, get serious about knowing a kid now. And so you got to ask yourself, what world are your kids living in? So our hope is to help you connect with some ways that others have helped us connect with where students are living in this phase. And so we think that there's 6 things that are actually really important to know about a kid in each phase and what's changing. And so we call them the big 6. The mental change, the physical change, the relational change, cultural change, emotional change, and moral change. And so we've got the mental, physical change going on with a cultural change, which creates a storm. And we believe that the navigation through that storm, or the umbrella from the storm, is our relational questions, relational people, relational friendships that we have. And then also we have our emotional and moral development that's happening all in these stages and all of these changes at the same time. So let's talk first about the physical and mental changes. So we would say that a middle schooler is now moving into a stage where they think like an engineer. Engineers solve problems by connecting concepts, so they work together. Middle schoolers personalize abstract concepts by connecting ideas. Like their physical bodies, there is a growth spurt in the brain of a middle schooler. The brain overproduces neurons and synapses similar to the growing brain of a toddler. This period of rapid growth accounts for middle schoolers' ability to think more abstractly, to understand multiple perspectives, and to think critically about themselves and others. It also means that their instructions need to be simple and clear if you hope to be heard. Like an engineer, they learn best when they personalize an idea by connecting pieces of information. That's why puzzles, patterns, and codes can be helpful for learning in this phase. And so they've got all these changes are going on, and they're beginning to think differently. They're beginning to put A and B together and getting C. Things are becoming less of black and white, and they're beginning to understand more of the gray. And so at the same time, they would add this to their cultural change. Now, cultural change is always happening. Matter of fact, the book that we have that we would encourage you to get from Rob, it's $20. It's great for understanding the different phases that each of the kids are in. It gives nothing on culture. As a matter of fact, it says culture is changing so fast that if they were to write in that book, by the time you got it, it would have changed. So the only way to learn culture is a couple ways, and one is to learn culture from your kids. Go to their movies, read their books, watch their TV shows, play their games, listen to their music, go to their stuff, their sporting events, talent shows, recitals, plays, and more. Another great way to learn culture that's going on with your student in their world is a website. I'll give you on the screen here. It's the Center for Youth and Parent Understanding. It's at www.cpyu.org. A great site that they work on, a Christian site to kind of help parents and youth connect with what's going on in culture today. So we've got these mental, physical changes and culture changes, and they're all going on at the same time. And another thing that always happens in one of these changes is questions begin to be asked, especially when it comes to culture, about sex. And so at youth group, this is the time where we start introducing the concept of purity and talking about that. Whenever we do that, a couple things have always happened when I'm a youth pastor. One, we get some parents that say, thanks for talking about this from a church perspective. Two, we get some parents that say, please do not talk about this with my kids. They're not ready for it. And I want to give you some statistics on where your kid's culture is when it relates to sex and sexuality and things that are going on. So this is not to scare you. This is just helping you understand the reality of the culture. The average age of first internet exposure to pornography is 11 years old. 48% of teenagers say they received a sext message. 5% of 12-year-olds, 10% of 13-year-olds, and 20% of 14-year-olds are sexually active. When you consider that less than half of 12 to 14-year-olds have never been on a date, these numbers are crazy. 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys is a victim of child sexual abuse. Over the course of their lifetime, 28% of youth ages 14 to 17 have been sexually victimized. Okay? And so I don't tell you this, again, to scare you, but I'm just trying to tell you that if they're not getting correct information from you as parents, which we want to partner with you. We want to give you a good jump-off point to talk about this stuff. If they're not getting correct information from us, then they're getting it from other places. And that's why sometimes they get these messages. Parents, message. Don't do it, don't talk about it. Church, don't do it because it's dirty, rotten, and sinful, and save that dirty, rotten, and sinful act until you're married. School says this is how you do it. Safe. Friends say, I do it all the time. So if you tell the church, don't talk about it, and if you say, I'm not ready to talk about it, then they get two messages, the school and their friends. You take the school out of the equation, and now they just have their friends. And that's where they're going to get it, and that's where they're going to get their information no matter how much you try to stop it. And so in youth group, we want you to understand their culture, and we try to understand their culture and how it's changing, and we try to speak about purity in mind, body, and soul. And it's awesome we get to come at it from a way that sex is not dirty, rotten, ugly, that God's actually created it for an amazing thing, and he thinks it's awesome within the confines of certain structures that God's laid out. And then we're able to talk about purity at a greater rate of, preparing ourselves for marriage and purity when it comes to sexuality in mind, body, and soul. And so we're excited that we get to talk about that with students and give them a positive view from the church, and we hope that you'll partner with us when we do that. So we got these mental and physical changes, cultural changes, creating this storm as they come together, and kids need a safe place to resolve who they are in the midst of this storm. And then relationship brings clarity. When kids see themselves the way a loving parent or adult sees them, it changes how they see themselves and helps through the storm. Now, I'm going to throw something else on the screen. I want you to check this out. This was actually from our parenting class. It's a small group that we do once in the fall and once in the spring. And this parenting class talks about this concept that if your goal is for your students, your kids, to receive your values and beliefs, that's what you want, is to impart your values and beliefs on your kids, the greatest factor that would increase the chance of that happening is the strength of your relationship with your kids. So the strength of your relationship with your kids will be the greatest factor that increases the chance of your kids getting your values and beliefs. To me, that's actually comforting, because then I'm not worrying about everything that I'm doing right and wrong as a parent. I'm going, okay, I got to live into my values and my beliefs. And then relationship becomes most important. And so I need to focus most on relationship with my kids and building that. And so we want you to catch that. Now, some of the relational questions that kids are asking at this age are here, and so we want to talk about middle school kids and relational questions. In middle school, a preteen challenges authority and personalizes what they believe. The way a middle schooler resolves the who question of life determines the framework for their relational stability. It affects the way that they see themselves, the way you see the world, and the way they see themselves in the world around them. In these phases, the relational questions shift from black and white to gray. The answers are no longer the same for every kid, so they need to be personalized. The best way to resolve a middle schooler's relational questions is to affirm their personal journey. Practically speaking, here's how we do that. And so we talked about the who question. And so there's two who questions, one that gets asked in 6th grade, and then it changes in 7th and 8th. But in 6th grade, it says, it's the who do I like and who likes me. And these are the relational questions that are asking. 6th graders need an overdose of acceptance to combat the storm of change. When adults recruit other affirming leaders and peers, kids gain stability. So as kids are going through the stage of who do I like and who likes me, one of the greatest things that you can do is try to find other adults and peers that could be positive influences on your kids to help with stability in this time where they're not longer going, how many friends do I have, but who do I like specifically, and who likes me of my friends. And then as they move on to 7th and 8th grade, they ask the who am I question. And 7th and 8th graders are increasingly self-aware and self-conscious. When adults acknowledge positive qualities and strengths, kids discover their uniqueness. So these are the who questions that they're asking relationally. And they're coming out of this. If you look at the graph, or actually the kind of the scale and pattern here, they're going from the am I safe? Am I able? Am I okay? Do I have your attention? Do I have what it takes? Do I have friends? And now for the first time, they're moving into who do I like? Who do I like and who likes me? And that's the question that they're asking. It's a time where the greatest thing that you can do relationally is affirm your students through this age. Now, one thing I want you to catch, I'm going to throw it up there, and you see it in your notes, and it goes back to this parental influence idea. And you can see this graph here, and as it's shown, you've got the two black circles or gray circles that say positional influence and relational influence. Okay, and so what this is talking about, remember I said what's the greatest increasing factor in your kids getting your values and beliefs? Your relationship with them. Because here's what happens. As we start out with your kids and they're born, and maybe say they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, you have influence because you're a parent. It's your position. You have the influence. But as they move along in life, the position influence that you have in your kid starts to go down, and the relational influence starts to go up. And here's how I can prove that. Now I live on my own. I have a wife. I have my 4 kids. I don't live with my parents. My parents have very little influence over me positionally. But my parents have great influence over me relationally. There's a lot of things that I do or I want to do or things that my parents tell me that I listen to, even if I don't fully agree with them because of my relational connection with them. So they have relational influence on me that they've earned. And so I want you to watch this, that you see you've got influence potential by hours across the top, 12 hours, 6 hours, down to 4 hours. And so they are moving right into the very first time where this intersects, and your influence on your kid actually becomes less by position and more by relationship. And so it's so important that we focus on relationships with our kids through these stages. Now, another thing that's going on in kids is the emotional and moral development of your kids, and I want to talk real quick about this. So you'll see on the screen there that there's 4 things that are developing through this emotional and moral development, the way they relate to themselves and the way they relate to others. So let's say the way they relate to themselves is they recognize and manage. They recognize and name the emotions they feel, and manage, take charge of their emotions. So they're developing this. It's these are 2 of the 4 tasks of emotional and moral development. And then how they relate to others. How they empathize, recognize the emotion of others, and respond to others with kindness. Now, each kid is developing these as they go along, and so you got to understand that that the mental and physical abilities set the limits for these kids at this age. So don't expect more than can be expected from a certain age level or phase. But also know that the cultural and relational experiences lay the foundation for this. And so this is how they begin from that foundation, and then they begin to recognize and manage emotions, and they begin to empathize and love with others. Now, moral emotions are instinctive. Moral emotions are instinctive. So you see a baby, and a baby doesn't like when another baby cries. They're born with it. No one had to teach them that. They're born with the capacity to love. But moral development is not instinctive. It's the ability to manufacture and control our emotions. And as kids grow in their emotional and moral abilities, it can either diminish or increase. So if you see on the screen, you'll see it's either up or down. There's no stay the same. And so what kids need in their life is someone that can influence their motives, because otherwise they're going to influence them down or influence them up. And through influencing a kid's motives, we get discernment. And this is why we want to guide you as a parent, hopefully us as leaders in your kids' life, to help guide them and influence them as they learn discernment. In order for a kid to discover their uniquely created potential to grow emotionally and morally, they need a guide. A guide helps someone become self-aware of choices and behaviors they have on themselves and others. The role of a guide isn't to motivate a kid to do right. It's not to influence a kid's behavior, because when you influence a kid's behavior, you only get them to respond to their present circumstance. The role of a guide is to influence their motives so they can discern what is right. Okay, so basically what this means is I've worked with lots of students when I was a youth pastor, and I remember some students that they were like the most polite. And it wasn't always this case, but I remember one student specifically, like super courteous, super polite, always there to help, very respectful of adults. Because that's what his parents had taught him to do in those moments. But outside those moments, when he wasn't around those adults, what his parents had taught him specifically to do, he made some horrible, horrible choices, okay? And so he began to make these choices, and I remember watching him grow up. This was real early on in my youth ministry, and thinking, man, when this kid is around his parents, this kid is like the most courteous, kind, helpful person I've ever met. And then on the other side, making all these bad choices. Well, because what his parents had done is said, this is the way you will behave, right? they didn't do anything to influence his motives. They probably had no idea that that was even something they should do. And so the role of guide is to influence motives. But in order to influence motive, you got to know what motivates a kid. And so that's what we want to talk about. So it says here, middle school can be impulsive and intense. Whatever they feel with passion. Even if they may change their mind tomorrow, they have a unique blend of confidence and insecurity unlike any other phase. So you have to affirm their personal journey. Middle schoolers are primarily motivated by, you guessed it, acceptance. If you try to motivate a preteen through shame or embarrassment, it may work against their primary motive. So if you're sitting here and you're trying to motivate someone to have the proper motives, and you're using shame at this age, it's just not going to work. It'll lead to defiant and defensive behavior. But when you respond to them in a loving manner, you learn to listen more often, encourage more specifically, and guide more patiently. Then you influence them to stop and think rationally before they respond in the moment. And so a few things to know with kids in this phase is that in sixth grade, they're kind of going through, it expands from black to white, thinking to consider motive for the first time, expands empathy beyond just people they know, and understands complex emotions but desires to shut them out in order to fit in. And how I can remember that time in life so well. Seventh and eighth grade, the most deceitful age, they will lie, begin to integrate reason and emotion, ability to self-reflect and evaluate, and tends to be occupied with ability or lack of it, and undervalue effort. So these are the things to know about how to motivate kids. And so you can see across the spectrum there, motivated by safety, motivated by fun, and now we're moving into the motivated by acceptance, and eventually the motivated by freedom. I also gave you this graph, and I'm not going to go through it, but it just kind of shows the timeline of everything that's going on in your kid's life, and you have those in your notes, and you can see those. And the last is how your middle schooler relates to God, and we're just going to run through this. This is a big age when it becomes discovery. We would call it discovery, where they're actually for the first time pursuing a relationship with God on their own, and they're beginning to discover that. Discovery is the big one. It's not wonder so much. We've been working through that, how big and how awesome and how amazing God is, but it's more about discovery. And so here's some things. God's story redeems my story. Tweens who think like engineers need to know that God can rebuild a story. Even when things haven't gone according to the plan, they relate to God who overcomes impossible odds to rebuild what is broken, bringing stability, restore peace, resolve doubt, give hope, and redeem everyone. When you affirm their personal journey to help a middle schooler own their own faith and value faith community. 3 ideas to help middle schoolers mature in their relationship with God. Help them connect the dots. An engineer may have to connect physics and design in order to solve a problem in the same way. This is the phase when kids begins connecting the information they learn in childhood to see how it works together. That means this is the very best phase to connect the overarching narrative of Scripture. There is an incredible potential to re-engage the sense of wonder about the Bible when their eyes are open to the masterful way the story connects not only from Genesis to Revelation, but within their own life. And when they can begin to connect those dots, it's huge. Expect a crisis. When engineers try to solve complex problems in creative ways, a few crisis moments are inevitable. Some middle school crises seem less complex, like when they're selected to go on stage for duct tape roundup. They may also begin to discover they believe a lot of things that don't easily fit together. They may ask how an all-powerful God allows bad things to happen. And just remember, you don't need to know all the answers, so don't act like you do. Just affirm what you do know and help them anchor their faith with what is constant. And then, most important, be consistent. Speaking of constant, you may never have a phase when predictability matters more. Practice making regular promises and following through in simple ways to prove that you can be trusted. It may seem like they are testing you, and that's because they are. Absolutely nothing you say will matter for a middle schooler unless you say it with the credibility you earn simply by showing up in their world to prove you care. And so, phase, a time frame in a kid's life when you can leverage distinctive opportunities to influence their future. Now, we do want to just quickly kind of go through how we understand phase, and so how we connect that in velocity. And so quickly, I just want to show you some slides here. This is the age where we talk about pursue. Okay, so we've come out of the discover wonder ages, and now we're in pursue, and we want them to pursue a relationship with Jesus. And so at Crossroads, we don't want to provide programs that they go to, and then when those programs get pulled away, they have no faith, they have no connection to God. We rather would introduce catalysts, and then those catalysts can be hopefully catalysts to them developing their own relationship with Christ. And those catalysts are partner with parents, life-relevant biblical truth, significant relationships over time, discover their potential personal ministry, spiritual habits, and significant life events. So we want to partner with parents. We know that while we may have 40 hours a year with them, you have over 3,000 hours a year with them to talk about these things. And that includes if you both parents work and you're super busy, you still have bare minimum of 3,000 hours. And so we want to partner with you. So mark emails, parents, every week. So make sure that we have your email. We try and send you ideas and thoughts of what we've talked about in student ministries, and our idea is that you can continue the conversation. Our goal with partnering with parents is let us start something cool and then show you where to pick it up from there. Connect with Facebook. Velocity Junior High is our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Velocity Studmin. Or you could volunteer. Volunteer in the grill, the info booth, hall monitor, small group leader, grade host links booth. Rob has some cards that I'll have him pass out at the end here. It'd be a great way to partner with us. And you'll see that on the screen. Rob will pass those out later. We also want to teach life-relevant biblical truth. Why we know that a lot of good stuff in the Bible, we pick each age specific stuff that we always want to be life relevant, something they can apply. And so we speak in these ages all the way through high school. Our hope is that they would understand authentic faith, spiritual disciplines, moral boundaries, healthy friendships, wise choices, ultimate authority, and others first. We believe in significant relationships over time, and so that's why we program things specifically how we do. So that's why specifically we want your student small group leader to be their same small group leader in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, relationships over time. We value small groups more than just about anything else, and so that's why in junior high we run youth group on one night of the week, and then the next night of the week we run small groups. So there's not a velocity program, and then velocity, and then small groups, because we value that relationship over time. This is why we think consistency at velocity is key, because if relationships over time is one of the most significant factors in your kids maintaining their faith after they leave and go on to college, then we believe that they're there consistently is a big part of that. We only get about 40 hours a year with them. And if they're probably only here every now and then, maybe then we're down to 20, and they're every other week. And we just think that consistency is important at velocity. And then this is why we do trips, to help students build significant relationships over time. We also want to help them discover their personal ministry through some of our student leadership teams and serving. And so we provide opportunities for the students to run Velocity themselves. It's our goal to help students graduate with the concept of spiritual habits. And so we spell out the word habits, and we say it's hang time with God, accountability with another believer, Bible memorization. And so we're really big with Bible about engagement over entirety. And so one thing that we do, and we'll be giving your students today, is not the entire Bible, but something that we think will help them engage in the Bible. And so they'll be getting a book that will take them 365 days a year, different Bible devotion each week. And we want to help them engage over entirety, because the entirety can be gotten from you at a bookstore or on the web at any time. And so we're big on engagement pieces when it comes to the Bible, over giving them an entire Bible that they'll just set on their shelf that they don't know how to read. We want to teach them how to engage with it. Involvement in the church, that's tithing commitment, and study scripture. And so those are one of our catalysts, is teaching spiritual habits. And then significant life events is the last, and that's when we do things like, let's celebrate. Let's celebrate. Your kid's going to 6th grade. Let's celebrate. Let's have fun with this. Let's help your student through this transition. Let's let them peek into what they will be experiencing in Velocity. And then let's help and celebrate parents through this transition. There'll be 2 more that we do. One is the challenge, and we take all parents and students to a ropes course. at a time when it's really challenging to create relationship with your students as they're going into ninth grade, and that's a great time. And then the last one is graduation Sunday. We also want velocity to be just done so well, and the whole program to be done so well that hopefully that can become a significant life event in their lives. And so that's why we do the things the way that we do it and how that we do it, specifically to make sure that it's done well. So this is kind of what we do. Hopefully this helps you. Hopefully this maybe raises some questions. Maybe this answers some questions and helps you as you're welcome to adolescence. You've got a sixth grader. And so a couple tools we want to give you on the screen here. One is the Center for Youth and Parent Understanding again. Also Helping Families Succeed, homeward.com. And then also XXX Church, which is an awesome ministry that helps students who are dealing in life with pornography. And it's just such a big thing. And often parents say, I don't know what to do. And so we have this website for people. Also, I want to show you, we have our 8-week parenting small group that runs again in the fall. I would just say, if you've never taken a parenting course, take this. It's awesome no matter how far along you are as a parent, no matter how long you've been a parent. I'm always stunned when I step back as a parent and think, man, I had to do more studying, more practice, and more rehearsing to drive a car and get a driver's license than to raise a kid. Like they're just like, oh, here's your kid, go home. And I'm thinking, are you nuts? I mean, like, what? And so I just always encourage parents, spend some time learning. And we have some great resources. Effective Parenting in the Defective World would encourage every parent to take that. Last thing is, I just want to give you, Rob will also pass this out, so I'll pass out a card that will allow you to volunteer. Hopefully you have all the notes that are passed out already. And then also this card, it says what we're doing in Velocity over the summer in June, July, and August. And this is how we work the transition, again, to help with this milestone. As we say that when they're in 5th grade, once we hit June, and kind of the regular velocity is over and we're into our summer events, kids can do both. So kids can continue to come to Kid Street, but they can also begin to check out Velocity in the events that are on this card. And so we want them to do that. But once we hit the fall, they can no longer do Kid Street, and Velocity is for them. And it's a great time. Junior high happens on Thursday nights, and so we encourage you to have your students check that out as it begins. So thanks for taking the time. If you have any other questions, ask Rob.